something doesn't get to a certain place that you had in mind, then you feel like a failure. And that happens to the best of us and the biggest of us and the smallest of us. So that has sort of reminded me that, and I'll take a quote from a friend of mine, Shelby Kennedy. He told me, he's like, you just stay in the queue. You can't ever get out of the queue. At some point, your time's going to come up. Your turn is going to come up. But you can't get out of the queue. You can't get out of line. You got to stay there no matter what it takes. You stay there. And he also says that if people buy the tree with the root system and everything, if they fall in love with that tree, they're going to come back. All the new branches that come on it, grow on it, they're going to come back every time. They're going to be like, oh, this one swings differently. Oh my goodness, I can climb in this one. Oh, I can build something on this one, you know. He's like, they will buy it, but they have to buy the tree. You have to let people know who you are, and you have to be honest and real and be a good person.
Welcome to Curious Goldfish, a podcast community where music and curiosity come together through interesting conversations with the music makers of our world. I'm your host, Jason English. You can find Curious Goldfish in all the major podcast and social media platforms. And of course, we have all of our content on our website, curiousgoldfish.com. Hey everybody, welcome back to Curious Goldfish. I'm Jason English. Stay in the queue, buy the tree. You can hear how much Shelly Fairchild's taken that to heart. Shelly's a singer, songwriter, and performer out of Mississippi by way of Nashville, with roots in musical theater that she'll tell you are both a gift and a curse. She lost a major label deal 20 years ago after being outed. She's been independent ever since, singing backup for Martina McBride, Ashley McBryde, writing sync music for television and film, and building a career on her own terms. Her last album was a decade ago. This new one was recorded at Fame Studios in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. And she talks about it like someone who's finally got back into the room that she was supposed to be in all along. I should also tell you that she cut herself installing a water filter the morning we talked. That's the first thing she told me. Not the new album, not about Muscle Shoals, not about the Kickstarter campaign. Just the water filter. And that's Shelly. She's going to tell you whatever's actually happening, and she's going to make you laugh while she does it. So from Nashville, Tennessee, but originally from Mississippi, here's Shelly Fairchild. Let's dive in. Shelly.
Hey, oh, did you see that? I cut myself today, so that's how we're starting off the day.
Oh my gosh. Are you picking too hard on the guitar? What was going on?
No, I was putting a water filter on my sink. It's not that exciting. So domestic.
Yeah, that's very domestic. All right.
That's okay. No, but I did enjoy trying to put that together and cutting my hands up a little bit. I love to do mechanical things around the house.
Okay. Well, it's not like you have enough going on.
On that.
So the day we're recording this is you're on the heels of being in Muscle Shoals, recording the album that's about to come out.
It's been a long time coming. It's been 10 years since my last record.
So 10 years, a decade. Why so long?
I don't know. I actually just said, well, I do know, kind of, but I have made a pact with myself that I'm going to do more of like every other year putting a record out, because this 10 years in between don't make any sense. But I think, honestly, like when you're an independent artist, it's hard to get all the money together for each of your records that you do, especially if you want to do full, like I do 11 songs on my records, and it's not cheap, you know? So I think it's like between trying to get out on the road and do as many dates as you can do. I write a lot for TV and film, so I tend to not be on the road as much as I once was. And this year I've got a lot more dates than I have had in a long time. So I'm so nervous and excited about that, but it seems to be cool. It seems to be really good. I did a Kickstarter campaign, which is how I got the money for this record. And a lot of the people are kind of fans and friends are weighing in on what cities they want me to come to. And there's so many venues now that are the kind of venues that will, I can sell out even if I haven't played there a bunch, because I know I have at least 50 fans in that area, or whatever it is, and they'll bring a friend. It's just been mind blowing, honestly. this
good
whole
for you.
process for this record.
All right. I have so many questions about so many things.
Okay.
Let's just stick to the record and to the recording process. So you were at Fame Studio, recording studio in Muscle Shoals, right? Have you recorded there before, and how did that come about?
Yeah, I worked with a band there. I was singing backgrounds on a record and collabed on one of the songs, and that was the first time that I'd ever recorded there, like, at Fame in Studio A. Oh my gosh, sang with the Shoal Singers, just James LeBlanc was there, which I've been friends with him for quite a few years, but, that was maybe 6 years ago. But in that moment, at that time, I was like I'd been there and I'd written before, actually in Muscle Shoals, just at another, couple of house studios. And I've never taken the tour of any of the famous studios, but I was asked to do this project, so I went in and we recorded at Fame and Muscle Shoals Sound for that particular project. And so I was like, okay, however and whenever I'm supposed to come back here, I'm gonna make it a priority. And so I talked about making this newest record with another producer out in Los Angeles. And so I was planning on flying out there and staying and holding up for a week, and doing that. And that fell through because the timing didn't work out. And I happened to be standing on stage in Muscle Shoals for a benefit concert that John Paul White puts on every year. It's a Home for the Holidays concert. And I was standing on stage. I got the message from this other producer's manager saying that the time wasn't going to work out. And I just was like, I looked over at my managers and I was like, we're making the record here. I don't know who we're going to make it with, but we're going to make it here. And so, I'm friends with John Paul White. We wrote one of the songs on our record, and I talked to him about it. He didn't have time to get in and record till the summer. And I was like, you know what? I've been thinking about this team of guys, these two guys. One of them I've known for 20 something years because he and I had records out at the same time. And I happened to actually meet him face to face in Florence, Alabama, which is right there in Muscle Shoals and where he's from, around that area. And I was opening a show for him, and he loved one of the songs that I recorded called Fear of Flying on my first record. And he just went on, and I just loved him so much. And that's Gary Nichols.
Oh, Gary.
And he and this guy, Greg Beek, have been working with the band Lula, who I'm in love with. So band Lula used those guys together and kind of put them together, actually. Had been playing and writing with Gary, and then had done some stuff with Greg separately. And then they all kind of got together on a couple of the songs and loved the mix-up of that. And when I talked to the band Lula, to Logan and Malachi, I was like, what was that experience like? Because I was like, you're not going to feel like I'm in your playground, right? And they were like, no, we love them and we want them to get as much work as possible. And like, they're so creative. So that's how that all ended up. And so I reached out to them and I was like, I want to cut in Muscle Shoals. You're from Muscle Shoals. What do you say? And Gary's like, man, I wanted to work with you for 20 years.
That's awesome.
So, and I didn't know that he was gave any credit about me. And so that's the cool part, is that, which I agreed with the band Lula. We talked about this, like, it's hard to get somebody that's like a famous producer or somebody who's really on a hot streak right now and everybody wants to use them, whether they're famous or not. It's hard to get people like locked in to care about the music they're making or care about where you're trying to go in your life, especially if you've been doing this for 25 years, and you're not 21 years old and you're not the hot thing, next thing, So it was just really remarkable that Gary had known me for that long and that I've worked with Greg on some other things, and they both were so passionate about, they didn't write any of the songs on the record. And they were still like, we want to make this record with you.
Oh, man. Well, good for you. I'm sure that meant a lot to you. And, the little podcast I have got going on, Humble Brag, Gary Nichols is one of my first guests. And then I just interviewed the band Lula at Americana Fest. So, I live in Atlanta. They're from Georgia. So they were two of the nicest people that I've met, and like so talented. So
they're so good that it makes my teeth hurt. Like Lula, Georgia, Lula County, right? Isn't that what it is?
Yeah.
I mean, what a cool Maine, what a cool place to be from. And then I was like, I'm going to buy all the merchandise. In fact, I almost wore my Band Lula hat because I love them so much. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
it's
great.
just like there's some good energy around some good artists right now that hadn't broken wide open, so the whole world doesn't know about them yet, but we know about some of them.
Yeah,
So
100%. Thanks for sharing that. I guess I have to ask the obligatory question about Muscle Shoals. So I spent a little time there with Gary about 2 years ago at a different studio, and being there a few days, and obviously all the history that's been documented. Like, we're not going to have time to go through all that, but people that I talk to that make music there, they all say the same thing, which is there's just this crazy energy, and people don't know if it's the Tennessee River that's right there, or is it just the ghosts of all the people that have kind of gone through the doors, especially at Fame? I guess as an artist, not to get too mystical here, but did any of that cross your heart or cross your mind?
yeah, I mean, like the first time I was there, I have all these pictures of the first time I worked in the studio there quite a few years back. I have all these pictures of me just like sitting in the room because there's something about the walls. Well, I mean, the carpet in Studio B where we recorded has literally been there since the 60s. So think about all of the feet that have walked across that, all of the feet, all of the like coffee spilled or cigarette ashes or whatever else, I mean, there's something to say about the energy of the people that have walked through those rooms and have sung, not and music just vibrates and changes wood and everything. So
No.
all of that with, Aretha Franklin and the Stones and the Allman Brothers and I mean, all these cats coming through there. It's like that, it makes such a absolutely there's a different feeling there. And the thing about Nashville studios is most of our historic places aren't here anymore, or they've changed so many times. So you
No.
don't really have the same. I mean, I just went up to Miss Linda, who is Rick Hall's wife, and thanked her. Thank you for holding on to this place. Thank you. She said, "Oh, I'm trying. I try to keep. We're just trying all the time." But they have tours going through there and everything, so they've figured out a way to keep it alive, and it's really important. We're shooting a documentary, and so we got a lot of footage, and it is remarkable what people say about their experiences in there. And
That's awesome.
I'm one of them. I mean, there's something about that place.
Good. Well, I want to ask you about the music. So, how does this album compare to your first one, Ride? It's been about, I don't know, 20, 21 years.
It's been
Is there a
so
is there a
long.
is there a theme? Is it a different sound? Like, what can you share with us?
I'll say Ride it was my first record ever, and it was on a major label, and so I didn't know how to do the whole thing. I just knew that I wanted to sing songs, I wanted to write songs, and, I also know that telling real stories was really important to me. Those are the songs I grew up loving. Those are the artists that I gravitated towards and learned from. And so when I went in to make my first record, that was important to me. So finding some songs like Tiny Town, I mean, that, now if I sing it, it sounds so young. But at the time, that's exactly what I was going through. And so that's, you got to capture those moments, right? And so for this record, I am I am back in a space where it's important for me to talk about where I came from. I'm at an age where a lot of people have passed on and family members are getting certain illnesses or this, that, and the other, and you're like, nothing is the same. So even when Tiny Town came out on that first record and You Don't Lie Here Anymore and all those songs, that's just I was just at the beginning of like, I'm gonna to live my life, but I miss my family. And now I'm like, my family, a lot of them are absolutely not here anymore. So it's not only do I miss them, but how did they shape me? And I've been gone so long. What does that feel like? And did I ever think that I was going to go back? And if I did, I haven't, and how does that? So it's just a lot of like telling you about where I am in my life and in my relation to the things that made me who I am. So that part is a lot like Ride. My last record, Buffalo, was kind of my most like revealing of myself, and this one is too. So it's just a continuation of that. It's just the storytelling of me.
Okay. From a musical standpoint, people have sort of tried to describe you as a little bit of Americana, a little bit of rock, a little bit of blues, a little bit of funk. And each of your records, I think, sort of symbolizes each of those bits. Do you think now that this is, I don't know if it's your fifth studio album, right? Yeah. So if this is number 5, do you think each one of those albums was you in that moment of time, or do you think they all represent you as a complete person?
They were flashes. Everything was a snapshot because I did Ruby's Money, and that's a horn band, and I was really trying to like hearken to the Stax records from the back in the day, and I really wanted, Adele was really big in the pop world, and I was kind of influenced a lot at the time by that, but also I was listening to like bands that had been around for a long time, Mother's Finest being one of them, Atlanta band
Yeah.
or Georgia band, and Mother's Finest, so I covered one of their songs on that record, and it was all like, it was a 10-piece band, so I had horns, and I'm a performer. That's kind of my biggest, like, calling card is that I can interpret songs and things, but I also started in professional theater and acting and everything, so I have, that in me. So, as that was leading me through Ruby's Money, it was, like, just a lot like a party, and so that was important to me because I wanted to show that that's where I was in my life, and that's in my 20s and, like, early 30s, late 20s, early 30s, and then the next record was like, I've gotta be more I want to live in this space forever where it's like now they call it Americana, but it's sort of a mix of the blues and of rock and of songwriter, singer-songwriter and folk and all these things, and I was like, "That's where I can live and die for the rest of my career." I can have horns on something, but is it this big party anymore? It doesn't feel like that, because that's not what's inside of me, but as the story has unfolded, I think you see now through the years, you can kinda see where my brain is and what I've been through and all that kinda stuff, just as growing up. And I think this record is a bit more mature, but not in a, like, sleepy way. I'm always pushing to have better songs and write better songs and find better songs, and so,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, the one song I've gotten, not a preview like in my ears, but at least lyrically, is "End Up in Austin."
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I guess,
That's a good one.
yeah, that's a good one. I mean, if we all end up in Austin, there's worse places to end up. But I guess
What a cool place.
yeah, just if you can talk about that for a minute, anything spark your memory in terms of where that came from and what part of yourself you drew from?
Yeah, I wrote that song with Ashley McBryde, who is one of the best songwriters I think that has ever been a songwriter, and Kaylee Hammock, who's an awesome songwriter and artist as well, country artist, and we sat down to write, and I was intimidated because both of those gals are just really very, very special, and sometimes that is I always like for, to be like iron sharpens iron and be in a room with somebody that's better so I can get better, but, sometimes when it's, just a bunch of girls and you're like, I don't know if I'm gonna have anything to contribute. I don't want anybody to think I'm dumb." And that just insecurity pops in, so I did feel that in the very beginning, but Kaylee started singing with her little vibrato, and she said, "I just wanna sing about packing up some soft things and, like, going to a place where you feel safe," and 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 then she popped out with, "We'll end up in Austin," and we were like, "Okay, I love Austin, that's cool." I mean, I think it was just a place, that sounded good singing it, but then as the story unfolded, it was really a lot about, or it was about sort of a mental health crisis that was happening, and, and I often say whether you've been the person calling or you've been the person being called, um, a lot of people have been in this situation before where you had to keep somebody on the phone. You're like, "It's gonna be all right. I'll be there in just a second." Or whether it's just your little sister and she's having a fit because she had a breakup or something, and you're like, "Just stay where you are. Do not move. Don't drive. It's not safe. You're upset. I'll be right there." And this one was going through Georgia because Kaylee's from Georgia, and so she said, we're like, the signal won't drop out till I'm 10 miles south of the Coffee County line,
Coffee County, yeah.
Yep. And so, like, you can tell that this person is just doing anything they can to get to the other person, and that was important for us because we've all 3 been in the situation one way or the the other. We've got a couple of other songs on there that are, there's one called Missin' Mississippi that I wrote with Ashley McBride and my friend Lisa Carver, who I call my spirit animal. Amazing songwriter. I always cut songs that she writes, and she lives in New Mexico now, but I try to get to her anytime I can, and so that was what we did here on this one, and it's a lot of really beautiful furniture words about my home and what I miss about my upbringing and the people that I love so much, and so that one's really important to me. It takes you in through little bitty Shelly's life, and you kinda walk through a bit of that, kind of like The House That Built Me. And, um, and then there's another song that I didn't write. Chris Harris, who plays mandolin and all kinds of acoustic instruments and sings his ass off. He is, in Ashley's band, actually, Dead Horse, and he wrote a song called Struggle, and it's about living this life, it's like, for everyone who gets a shot in the spotlight, there's 1,000 left out in the dark, and the only ones making any money are the pawn shops and the bars. I gotta remind myself sometimes that I'm here on my own free will. The dream is a dream, but the struggle is real. We always hear that like, "Oh, the struggle's real, man, the struggle's real." But, like, when we were cutting it, the bass player, Jimbo, in Muscle Shoals was like, I haven't enjoyed a song and making a song and being a part of a song as much in years as I have today." And, like, he was, like, physically, not emotional, like, crazy emotional, but he was taking a minute and needed to say that to me, and I was like, "I know." And I didn't write it, so I can, of course, be like, "All praise to Chris," and, um, you know,
I
but
love that. Yeah. Well, so quick plug for prior guests on this show. So there's a woman that I interviewed late last year that I've listened to for 30 years. She's from Mississippi. Her name's Claire Holly.
oh,
But
cool.
she's, folk, acoustic folk singer-songwriter, but she's lived in LA for, I don't know, 20 some odd years. Her recent album that just came out in the fall is called Where I Lived. And it's about growing up in Mississippi. And it's really cool.
Well, I can't wait to listen to her.
We were talking about Dolly beforehand. She has an amazing song too that's on this album called Beauty School, and it's
Uh-huh.
inspired by the friendship of Tammy Wynette and Dolly. When Tammy
Yeah.
was basically dying, Dolly would visit her, and Dolly always told people she wasn't a singer; she wanted to be a cosmetologist, and so in beauty school and things like that. So it talks about her going to take care of Tammy Wynette's hair and things like that.
Well,
It's
I got my cosmetology license in 2001
oh, you
because I
did.
was like, I need to Tammy Wynette had her license till the day she died. I keep
Yeah.
this.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
exactly.
so
So
I
anyway,
got mine.
so that song's on that album, but the Where I Lived is from, it's about Mississippi, which I
That's
thought
cool.
you'd appreciate. But,
I'm gonna go look her up and listen to her.
you mentioned, musical theater and Broadway
Mhm.
theater. A lot of your peers in Nashville, in Austin, in Fort Worth, or wherever, they grew up cutting their teeth in bars, in taverns, pubs and stuff. I guess, how did that experience in musical theater sort of shape your identity, as a songwriter, as an artist, in a different way than maybe, again, sort of the assumption of country music and the assumption of people that are in Americana around, bars and things like that?
I think sometimes that artists that grew up playing in bars are real hard on people who didn't, you know? And, um, along the way, it's been just as much of a fight to have anybody care about your music or what you do or anything as for somebody like me who grew up singing in theater or singing backgrounds for other artists or, you know, um, it's been just as much of a fight because it's very hard to find your way and be able to make a living doing it. And the same thing in bars. Now, granted, I do feel like I missed out on learning how to I can hold a crowd, but learning how to hold a drunk crowd for 4 or 5 hours for no money and continue and be somebody that they love, that they come back and see you after time, that's something I did not grow into, so I have to depend on a little more of, like, how I translate my songs, and then how I act to you when I get you to shake your hand or whatever else. So, like, I'm not just somebody who performs. I'm a real somebody, that cares about what it is that I'm telling you, and cares about, like, bringing life into the room just like you would if you're at a bar. You're, like, trying so hard to get somebody to pay attention. And I think that I have a different skill set. I have a different skill set. I come from a background of, yes, theater, dance, big, the big dream, of, like, I want the biggest stage. I want all the trucks. I want the lights. I want the outfits. I want the whole thing. That's what my dream was. And so I sing to a crowd like I'm singing to 50, 60,000 people,
Mm.
and I
Okay.
think a lot of the times because of that, I have to remind myself, like, to come down to, I'm in a bar and there are 10 people here, and that's how intimate it needs to feel, even if you're in a big space. So there's a lot that I think they're just different worlds. And I mean, when I had my first record deal, I played my share of bars, but I was only doing it for like a couple of years.
Right.
And then since then, when I started booking my own shows, it's more music room, like performance halls and little coffee shops or little listening rooms and things like that I knew I could sell some tickets to, since I hadn't, like, built my crowd up over the years. It's just, I don't know, it's been an interesting ride for me.
Mm.
The thing that I thought it was gonna be isn't the thing that it is, and it's also not over yet.
What if you had one show to go to on Broadway that you had to see either for the first time or again, and you could only see one? Do you have a favorite?
West Side Story.
Okay.
That's my favorite musical.
No hesitation. I love that.
No. I got to play Maria in West Side Story when I was in high school. Well, after the first year of, like, college, and I'm so in love with that role and that show, and there's so many good ones since then. So many, so many, so many. So I don't know, it's hard. I also wanted to play Elphaba in Wicked, and I don't know if I could sing that part, but when it first came out, boy, I thought, I'm going after that. And of course, I just kept writing songs and going after this. But,
No.
there's who knows?
It's not your story's not over yet. So that's
Who
good.
knows what's on the horizon yet?
Yeah, I just saw Hamilton for the first time a few weeks ago in New York, and that was a spiritual experience.
That's what I said to our friend group and, like, my managers and stuff. I said, we need to learn Hamilton. We need to learn Hamilton, and then we need to go and see Hamilton. But we need to make ourselves learn it, because that's what we all did in high school. We were
Right.
learning all these musicals, and then we'd finally get a chance to go see them when we got into college or whatever. We're like, because it's a whole different experience when you know all the music. And then it's put to life in front of you, and it's like you can't help but tears just streamed down my face. The first time I saw The Lion King, I mean, it started with that rumble, and I lost it. I was like, like ugly crying.
That's great.
But, yeah.
Well, cool. What so my tagline for this podcast is it's a music podcast about more than music.
Yeah.
And that means a couple different things. Obviously, you talked about mental health earlier and some other things. So that like that's part of it is whatever challenges there are in life, and we all face them, and a lot of musicians face them and write about them, which is great. Then there's the other side of it, which music podcast about more than music. The more than music is also the business side, right? So all the things. I think you've got a really interesting perspective on all of that. I guess let me start with the business side, because I talk to a lot of independent artists, and we talk about the streaming stuff and the t-shirt sales and you being your own booking agent and everything. And I think you've figured out something that's really interesting, which is not only do you make great records, and when you tour, but you've got the sync world, right? Where you mentioned earlier you write for TV and film. So I definitely want to ask you about that. But you also have been a backup vocalists on a number of tours of, so many well-known artists. I guess I'll just call it like back in the shadows or being in the backdrop. What have you learned watching, how those artists treat their crew or how the set list flows that you've been able to sort of apply to your own world as an independent artist, after all these years? Is there anything specific from that experience?
Um, one of the artists that I've sung backgrounds with, Martina McBride, I learned a lot while I was on the road with her because she's had the same players in her band, the same crew for 20 something, pushing 30 something years. And I really never understood because I've had some really good, interactions with bands that I've had, and I've had some really bad experiences as well. And so that's something I've really paid attention to because I'm like, she's running a really good, tight business that she is both loved and respected. And she's this tiny little woman. So she's doing things so right. And also she had all these hits and then she hit a peak where then radio wasn't playing her as much and she gets older, and watching that process of getting to be older in the business and be a woman, not only a woman, but her peers, the men in the business, and watching where it sort of wanes in that direction of, well, we don't really hear them on like, current contemporary country radio now, and how that looks and feels. And so I feel like I've been really lucky to see from a lot of different perspectives. I go out on the road with Ashley McBryde sometimes, and I'll see how her band, she's very akin to Martina, even though they're not related, in the way that she handles her band and crew. I mean, she's had the same band, the exception of a few people going in and out. They absolutely would take a bullet for her, and she includes them at every turn. And so watching that and the way that business is run and how, they are cared for on the road, and then also how different artists have handled disappointments. And at every level there are hurts, at every level you can experience this a lack of success in your own mind. If something doesn't get to a certain place that you had in mind, then you feel like a failure. And that happens to the best of us and the biggest of us and the smallest of us. So that has sort of reminded me that, and I'll take a quote from a friend of mine, Shelby Kennedy. He told me, he's like, you just stay in the queue. You can't ever get out of the queue. At some point, your time's going to come up. Your turn is going to come up, but you can't get out of the queue. You can't get out of line. You got to stay there no matter what it takes. You stay there. And he also says that if people buy the tree with the root system and everything, if they fall in love with that tree, they're going to come back. All the new branches that come on it, grow on it, they're going to come back every time. They're going to be like, oh, this one swings differently. Oh my goodness, I can climb in this one. Oh, I can build something on this one. He's like, they will buy it, but they have to buy the tree. You have to let people know who you are. And you have to be honest and real and be a good person. And then, whatever music you make and put out, they're going to keep coming back. So there's a lot that I've learned watching other artists and having conversations with people of all different like maturities in the business. Because it's so interesting to talk to somebody really young right now too, that's like running social media and find out their strategy. And you're like, I mean, I don't want to do any of that, but yeah, I'll pay you to do it. Like, I don't get it. I mean, there's just it's such a rich river of information and experience. And although it's ever changing, there are certain things that I think are just sort of the principles that you can stick to and say, I'm never getting out of the queue. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be a good person. I got to figure out how to run my business so that I keep people, and
That's great.
there's a lot. So
are those things that you would only have learned if you had, again, I think those are great opportunities to sing backup, right? So I'm not downplaying that, but it's kind of cool. Like you've had that different
yeah,
perspective. Would you have learned those things if you were,
I,
at the
I
front of the
don't
stage the whole time?
I don't think so because I mean, I may have, I may have over time because I have a lot of friends that are older than me in the business and now some a good bit younger than me. But like, I think when I first started, it was a whirlwind. which it is for a lot of young artists. And especially if you sign a record deal with a major record label and then they put you on tour and they give you a tour bus and all these kinds of things. If you've never had anything like that, and not that you expect it, but that you just don't know any other way. Whereas a lot of the artists that played in bars or like slept in their truck and then got a crappy van and then got a, conversion van and then got a crappy tour bus and then a real tour. Like I went from doing gigs. And I mean, I'd done professional theater, so I'd been on a tour bus before, but it was like, a very small operation. And then I did my own gigs, but I went right to a tour bus when I signed a record deal and like went on the road with the Rascal Flatts and Blake Shelton and Tim McGraw and all these people. And it was really big. So it was a whirlwind. I don't know what lessons I learned during that time, And I remember I had this bus driver named Mike. And at the time, I would lose my voice a lot because there's a lot of stress. It's just a lot of stress. There's a lot of radio shows, and then you got to go do the big shows, and then you got to go do all the little radio, like interviews, so you talk a lot and all this kind of stuff. So I would lose my voice, and I would freak out about it. So when I get on the bus, a lot of the times I'd like say, hey, but then I'd go back to my bed and just go to sleep. And I remember a bus driver named Mike, and he drove for Martina as well. He drove our band bus, and the first time I got on the bus with him, he said, do you remember me? And I was like, yes. Why? I remember your face. Why? He was like, I drove for you. He's like, you never talked to me hardly at all when we were on the road. And I was like, I'm such a talker. I mean, listen to me. And I'm also like, I think everybody wants to be my best friend. So I'm just like, I'll usually sit up and just visit and visit and visit. So I couldn't believe that ever happened. And I was like, well, Mike, I was always feeling sick. I was always going back to but I said, I'm so sorry. I would have never treated you like that. He said, no, I knew you were a sweet person, but we just never really talked. And that like said so much to me. I don't know why that hit me so hard, but those are the kind of things that had I just been running around myself, maybe I wouldn't have been told, hey, it's kind of cool just to visit with your bus driver. And it is so cool. They're the best. I mean, they keep us safe, It's like sitting up front and watching the world go by with them is just something that you can't pay money for. So that was a good lesson, and there's so many other things like that. Yeah.
That's a great story. I mean, so looking back the 2 decades, is that whole time period a blur to you, looking back?
Yeah, it feels like I've time jumped or something, like that was a whole gazillion lifetimes ago, and then there was another like there's an in-between lifetime, and then there's like, wait, what? So I keep a lot of my memorabilia. I mean, I'm not a hoarder, but I keep a lot of that in a box so that I can go back through and look and go, oh my gosh, look at my schedule. Look how much I was gone, and like, look at that, and look at all these photos from this photo shoot, and look at all these videos on these high 8 tapes, and it's wild what time does.
Well, I want to come back to that, but before I forget, sort of the business question, I guess where I was going to lead with when I talked about being a backup, and then the sync stuff, which the television and film. Again, I don't want specific numbers, but I think people that are in music would be interested. Where you think about your income that comes in, is it mostly through the sync? Or is it publishing, or like where? I'm just curious because
publishing has become a weird thing for all the songwriters of the world, right? Because streaming doesn't pay. So, and it pays, but it pays little. So finding avenues to make money as a songwriter and artist, and one that doesn't have a big touring base, you just got to get creative with the things that you do. And if it's something that's interesting, which it was for me, I want to hear my songs on movies. I want to hear my songs in TV shows, and here's another thing about me. I can sing a lot of different styles of music, and I can write a lot of different styles of music. I think that comes from my theater background. I think it very much comes from my theater background because I can play different roles. But I also can manipulate my voice to fit sort of some different other voices. So if I'm singing with Martina, I can sound this way. If I'm singing with Jason Aldean, I can sound. If somebody says I need a big gospel sound, I can do that. If somebody says I need a real pop, like very pointed, no vibrato, like Pink, or like, an artist like that, then I can do that too. So it's just, at some point I've thought, oh, that's a thorn in my side because I don't have just one sound like Tina Turner. Like Tina Turner, ain't nobody going to mistake her for anybody else. But like me, I can do a lot of different things, manipulate my voice. And so I have often thought of that as kind of a curse. Then about a year before COVID hit, I started writing. I started with this company, a small sync company here in Nashville that just happened to be getting a lot of placements. They had a lot of relationships. And I wanted to get in with them so bad. They sort of were interested. And so they started hooking me up with some of their writers. Well, I turned in songs that then turned right around and got placed. So then they were like, okay, well, let's do a deal. Like, you're kind of cool. Let's do that. So I started getting more. And I also then kind of diversified. I had a couple of other writers that I would write with that had like deals that were like catalog deals. Cause a lot of the times, sync company, if it's a small boutique sync company, they just get like one-offs. Well, then there are other companies that have your songs go into a full library, which those aren't best case scenario because they don't pay as much, but they definitely pay over time. And it's sort of the gift that keeps giving. So I did both. I had a little sync company deal and then I had a library deal. And I mean, I was just churning out 5 and 6 sync songs a week. And during COVID, made more money and did more work than I've ever worked in my life. So
Is it chicken or the egg in terms of, so let's say your first album ride, was it easier? Let's go back. I don't know how it all started, but is it like, here's 11 songs on this album? Can you find a show or a film for one of these songs? Is that how it started? Or do you actually say, listen, I think I can write for a television show or a film, give me the shot. And then you actually see the script or whatever. And then, write to that script. I guess, how did it start? And then what's the more common scenario now for you?
I think the more common scenario for a lot of artists now is that somebody like a Taylor Sheridan finds them, Ryan Bingham, as an example. And obviously he's an actor as well, but loved his music, wanted to highlight him and make him a star in the best way that Taylor knew how. I don't know their whole story, but this is from an outsider looking in. And then places him in a show in Yellowstone, places his music. There's a lot of Ryan Bingham music. And it's like, you know what? You didn't ever break as far as like commercial country radio, but everybody knows who you are now, and there are artists that are like that. Like I believe Lizzo had a big hit, like a commercial or something, and that launched her. There's another artist called the White Buffalo that it's all sync stuff. And they just found his music. Somebody that was a music supervisor just loved him. And because there's so much content now for TV, it's like you can't have enough music. And for me, my first record did not, I take that back. It did grab some supervisor's attention, but at the time I really didn't know anything about sync. So I didn't know how to, and I didn't own the rights to that record. So I didn't know how to navigate that. Once I was out and independent and started becoming interested, I literally just went in with a producer who was another songwriter. And we just were like, let's write a song that is this kind of feel. And here's a title I've been tossing out. And most of those producers in sync are programmers. So they do everything in the box. And so it's not, you don't have a band and you can literally start a song that day, leave that day and have a song finished and turn it in. And the thing is that as much as I'm a purist about going in and cutting with my regular band and not having program tracks, I love program tracks for sync. I love it. I'm so satisfied, because most of the instruments inside of Pro Tools are everything. I mean, those are real instruments, but they've just digitized them. So it's such a cool way to do what we do. And I've been a reggaeton artist. I've been a rapper. I've written SoCal music. I've written R&B, straight up cinematic pop, and some country. And in fact, the country stuff that I do, I don't even think I do that very well in the sync world because I'm like, you got to be like positive because they give you kind of themes, they're like, we need something that doesn't say, you won the race, but says everything but you won the race. So you'll kind of get briefs. Sometimes you get a script and it's like Trolls the movie. We're looking for a song to replace this. And it's, needs to be kind of like a Justin Timberlake song. And so you're like, okay. And then you just start writing and you're like, I think we landed on it. Now, I did not get that placement, but it was a really good song.
This whole topic sounds like its own art form, to be honest.
It is. And it's
like
the
in,
it's,
in
it's
its
the
in its
same
own way,
thing.
right?
It's the same thing with this whole argument with AI, right? Like AI creating all these. I'm not a big AI girl, but I also understand that it is here. It's not going away. So it has to just be its own art form. And then the rest of us are doing, there are all these categories of things, and that's one of them. And so, like, with sync writing and all that, they're like, I need some rock swag. But there are like certain key words that they'll say they need, or I need something that's like a dark cinematic, you know, defeat, a song of defeat. And I need you to use the word like savage or, and it'll give you like keywords and they'll say somehow mix these in there.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Well, again, another plug. I'm actually doing a survey now of fans, artists, and people in the industry about AI and streaming.
Mm.
I just want to get a benchmark of if what their thoughts on AI. If it's like no, hell no, or yes, maybe, or yeah, absolutely, it's inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad you brought that up. I'm actually surprised at some of the responses so far. The feedback's been interesting because I didn't expect so much openness to it from actual musicians because I think
Mm-hmm.
there might be a stigma, like, oh, it's not authentic or whatever. But I think to your point, like when I've heard that, people are creating demos now with Suno, like
Mm-hmm.
it actually streamlines that whole process. It reminds me of what you just described in terms of the sync process.
Well, yeah, because like Suno, for instance, there are songwriters that are hit songwriters, made millions of dollars on hit that were on the radio, that were whatever, that can't get a publishing deal to save their life these days. So consequently, yes, maybe they have money that they've saved or they've invested or whatever, but they don't have like a budget necessarily to go cut demos, but they're still writing
Mm.
songs every day. So what do? They find a program that now exists that they can put in their soulful vocal in the style of Dusty Springfield with da 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 da. They can put their whole lyric and do a work tape themselves. But as all of us know, there are songwriters that don't consider themselves artists, that don't consider themselves good singers. So they can put it down in a recording on their phone or something, put it into Suno, and then it makes a full demo that sounds great. I can tell. Most people can tell when it's a Suno demo. There's like a sibilance that you are like, that's a little bright, or you can hear that hissy kind of sound. But as far as getting the point across to an artist, to pitch to, Luke Bryan or whomever else, it's working for some people, and they
Works.
don't have the budget because they can't get a publishing deal because they're not, big hit songwriters anymore. And some of them are having success with that by getting cuts.
No, that's really interesting. All right. Well, thanks for sharing all that. So, do you want to go back, 20 years or so? And again, your story is well documented about the label, why the
Yeah,
label kicked you out and that whole thing. So I'm not going to ask you to rehash that. I guess in just the brief there is, you're gay
gay,
at the time, 20
gay,
years
gay,
ago.
gay.
The label didn't, they found out about it. They didn't love it. And there was a lot of gaslighting, a lot of subtle, what I would call like subtle harassment about that, about your choices and, about who you were loving and stuff, which is crazy to think, but that was only 20 years ago. But I guess my question
Mhm.
on that is, if you had a conversation with yourself 20 years ago today, what would you tell her in terms of
Hmm.
positive motivation or advice or whatever? And I was going to ask you if things have changed,
It's
in
in
the 20 years, but yeah, I want to start with that first question.
it's interesting because I have been asked this question, and I've asked myself this question quite often because there are other people that I know that are in the position that if they were to wave a flag or, make a big headline or whatever announcement, that it would probably drastically change their fan base or drastically change their standing in the industry. I mean, we still live in that world. So, I mean, look at the state of our nation just overall with racism and prejudices. It's so, it it makes my chest, like, wanna catch on fire. I mean, I just can't I don't understand why we're still here because we've come so far. And then it's like, oh gosh, now we got to go back. I mean, what are we doing? So I think that I stand by authenticity, honesty, and love. Like my goal is to love, and to love as hard and as far and as vast and as everything as I possibly can. And that is with a person that I have chosen as my intimate partner, or my mom or my dad or my next door neighbor, as much as I can give in that way to bring goodness before I die. That's what I want. So when I look at my little self, I would say, you're going to lose your record deal. You're going to lose your record deal. But you're also going to be absolutely free to say and do and go and be who you are. And that's it. There's nothing to apologize for. If they don't like you for it, that's okay. It's going to look differently than it did. I mean, would I have done things differently? I would have done some things differently, but I definitely would have still stood for what I stand for.
Well, that goes back to your comment earlier about your friend and advice he gave about the tree and the roots, right?
Mm-hmm. But that's me too. I can't personally breathe when I feel like I'm being inauthentic. That is a personal, it always has been. If I'm not wide open, then I don't feel like I'm being honest, and I feel like something is wrong, and the flow of life doesn't come through me. There are other people that can keep their lives really private. They don't have to be an out loud, like my friend Wendy Moten, who's a Black artist, who is one of the best artists, one of the best voices that has ever existed, like a Whitney Houston artist. She has said to me before, because I got really upset about a racial situation, and she has said to me, I'm a vaccine. I go in and I love people right there, face to face. She's like, you march, you write speeches, you stand up and you scream to the top of your lungs. I go into somebody's house and I sit down and I love on them, she said, I'm the vaccination. And so I've had to really recognize that the people that don't think that they have to stand up and scream it to the tops, there is respect in that too, and I think sometimes that's more effective because, whomever is receiving the information that might be hard information about me being gay, if I'm not like, I'm gonna get over it, if I'm just like, hey, can I cook you a casserole or whatever, it might be more like, wow. If when they find out, then they're like, I've loved you for years. I didn't have any idea. And yeah, does it change?
Yeah,
So
imagine that.
yeah.
So do you think it has gotten any better for people?
It's definitely gotten better, but has
Okay.
it changed?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But it's gotten better. So we just keep going,
Yeah. No, good for
But
you.
I mean, Brandi Carlile has taken over the world, and she's gay as gay can be.
100%. She's incredible.
She is. She's doing her first world arena tour, and it's like, look at the crowds. I mean, nobody cares. And she's very open about her life, her whole life.
100%.
Because if we normalize it by just being normal, then we're good. Nobody's freaked out because you're just being a regular person doing your regular. So that's what I'm hoping for.
All right. Well, one other comment on that is, so my most recent episode that I published is with a singer-songwriter from Dallas. Her name's Stephanie Salmons. She's also gay. And I just published it this week. But I asked her a question, and it was, I was like, okay, should I ask this? But I said, do you ever think there'll be a time when someone like me won't ask you about your sexuality? Kind of back to your point around it should just be how it is. Instead of Stephanie Salmons, the gay singer-songwriter, it's Stephanie Salmons, the amazing singer-songwriter from Dallas, right? And she's like, probably not. But she said, I've stopped writing about it, because I've kind of dealt with that through song, and I'm ready to address other things. So I thought that was interesting. Cause I do think that unfortunately is it still a thing for someone like me to look at, Shelly Fairchild and say, okay, what's her story? That's definitely part of your story because of what happened. Right. So I don't know, it's hard for me because I don't want to ask you, but it is part of your story.
And I honestly, I don't mind I don't mind because I think it's one of my favorite things about myself. And
That's
that's
awesome.
the hardest thing to get to, I think, when you are gay or whatever you call yourself. I think if you're outside of whatever the norm or what society sort of believes you should be, then part of the most difficult part of that is that you are ashamed of yourself, if you are ashamed of yourself. But I think for me to be like, I love this. I love this life.
Yeah.
I'm just being as regular as can be, and then that's so, I love who I love, and I love that it's a woman, and I just don't really think about it like that way anymore. But I do think, just as we are talking still about, well, you're the first Black country artist to come, they don't let, blah, blah, on stage. We're still talking about it.
Right.
We're still talking about it. Why are we still talking about it? I think we will, and maybe one day we won't, but we will until we won't.
What?
I,
So,
I don't know if we're going to see that in our lifetime.
so what's your relationship status now?
She is taken.
All right. All right. So last question.
Yep.
Really appreciate your time, Shelly. So we were talking, this podcast is inspired by Ted Lasso. Be
Yep.
curious, not judgmental, and then be a goldfish. I think curiosity is very underrated in music and in life, corporate world, family, dating. You seem to be a very curious person. I guess I'm interested. What are you most curious about today?
What am I most curious about today? I think I am. I'm really curious as to, can I reference it to like music, like my music about to come out and stuff?
Yeah. Answer it however you want. It doesn't have to be
Okay.
about music. It could be about life or whatever. Yeah.
Well, I'm kind of curious as to why it takes trees really a long time to grow into like their full mature bodies. I don't really understand. I mean, their root. I don't know. That's a curiosity that I have because we just planted all these big giant green giants, and they only grow like a couple of inches a year. I'm like, how is that a thing? Like, how is that not? Why are you not just like grown up? I mean, my palm out there grows huge. I mean, it'll be so tall this summer, and like, I don't know. So that's a curiosity of mine. I'm also curious as to how the music that I'm going to put out on April 15th. I'm curious as to what company I'm going to be with to distribute it. So I'm putting that out there because I'm not really sure. I had a record deal on Kill Rock Stars and decided to go independent again, but I would love to do some kind of distribution deal. And I'm just sort of staying curious about what that next relationship is.
So in my limited knowledge, aren't there levels of distribution so you can kind of take do your own DIY level?
Mhm.
You can do a kind of a mid tier, and then you can kind of do a full turnkey option. I
Yeah.
guess what would you prefer?
I would prefer going with sort of a company that is a reputable, sort of, they spit out really good products and great artists, and they have good artist deals. Um, because it would be nice to see how far this could go. So when you do it yourself, you got to kind of depend on something going viral, or and that means, for me, if something gets picked up by sync, and then it gets a bunch of streams, and then people find it that way. I would just love to be able to have my records in stores again and that kind of thing, which I don't really know if I'll be able to do if I'm just doing it on my own. So
And for the audience, the distribution handles not just, kind of like, again, 30 years ago, putting it in Tower Records, but in today's world, they're the ones that manage the relationship with
yeah,
the platforms, right? The streaming platforms too.
yes, and they help get you playlisted, and
Yeah.
so all it is more reach. It's just a further reach, and that's what I would love to see for this record. I think it's too good, and all the people involved in it are too great and have given so much heart, and I just want to see everybody get like a pat on the back, you know.
That sounds great. Well, hopefully that works out. And you're going to be touring more in 2026, right?
I am. I've got more dates on the books than I have in a long time. So come see me if you're
Okay.
around. I am coming. I'm coming to, I believe, let me look and see. It's not Eddie's Attic. It is.
Would you ever do a backyard house show?
Yes, I'm doing one in Asheville. I love those. So if you have those, invite me. Oh, I'm trying to find my, okay, here. Eddie Owen Presents in
Oh yeah,
Duluth,
Red
Georgia.
Clay. Red
Yep.
Clay Duluth, yeah. So that's the original Eddie.
That's right. And I'm playing
Yes.
October the 9th.
Perfect. Okay, that's a good spot.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, Shelly, appreciate your time.
Thank you.